We are live. Very happy to meet you, Mr. Alan Grant.
I'm happy to meet you.
Yeah, I'm really thankful for accepting my invitation. It's an honor to be able to talk with you, writer legend. So, well, I asked to all my guests if, because my audience is very broad, there's musicians, comic book fans. So if you can introduce yourself in just a few words for the people that don't know, or I can do it for you.
No, it's okay. I'm Alan Grant. I'm a writer, mainly of comics. I've written Judge Dredd for 40 years, Judge Anderson, Strontium Dog for 2000 AD, and I've also written The Demon and Legion and Batman and Detective Comics and Shadow of the Bat for DC Comics. And I've done a few things here and there for Marvel Comics.
Really?
Silver Surfer story, an Incredible Hulk story, a couple of Punisher graphic novels. But my comics work doesn't stop with the main companies. I've also done comics work for Lego, transforming some of their toys into comic strip versions.
Well, that's amazing. I think we can go on and on all night if you keep going. So no, it's for me. It's amazing to have you on my podcast. But I was unaware that you wrote some graphic novels for the Punisher.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, I can't remember the name. It was
of course.
Punisher Comes to Scotland. Blood on the Moors.
Yes. I love the Punisher, and is the only one I don't have. But yeah, I remember. I used to buy a comic book. Was a comic book that talked about comic books, like kind of Wizard, but it was a different name. And I remember they talk a lot about that graphic novel because it was really unique. How was your experience writing the Punisher?
It wasn't the best experience I've had. John Wagner and I wrote the script, and it's our custom to have some of the minor characters be humor characters. So we're into it. Not with the Punisher himself, but the minor characters round about him. And we sent it to Marvel, and we got a quite upset phone call from the editor to say that Punisher wasn't a humor title and we should do the script again but take all the jokes out. So we did.
Okay. Well, I think sometimes it happens when a character is really well established. The companies are scared to explore.
Yeah.
I've
seen it all too often with many other characters. The companies are afraid to take a chance, particularly if something's successful.
Yes. Yeah, no, I think we obviously when there is money involved and the title is selling well, the company are scared to change it because they were gonna lose money. But art,
you don't want to fix it if it isn't broken.
Yes, but also I think if you can rethink the character or create different stories or purpose, the character get a little bit like, I don't know, flat, and people lose interest. I don't know. I think could
Yeah.
could work on both ways.
You always have to take a fresh look at the character. I remember Denny O'Neil, who was my editor on Batman, he told me that every 10 years they retell the origin story, but making it just slightly different enough to appeal to a new generation of comics writers. And I think he was quite right with that.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And yeah, we can see clearly, for example, with the new film they are making for Batman, is clearly for a new generation of fans. Is they are really taking chances with the actor they choose. No, that's really interesting. But I would like you, if you allow me, to take you back to how you start writing comics, because I read a little about your biography, and yeah, it was kind of was your passions at the beginning.
Yes, comics were my passion, but I wanted to be a comic artist, not a comic writer. But unfortunately, my art didn't improve very much. When I left school, I worked for a bank, which I hated. And I went from there to working for DC Thomson, the publisher in Dundee, who publishes most of British comics like the Beano and the Dandy and the Topper, the Beezer. And I went to work for them as a sub-editor. And they decided that my forte was actually teenage fiction. So I ended up as the editor on their teenage fiction comics, which were actually comics. I don't know if they still do them now. Do you know the DC Thomson title Commando?
It ring a bell.
It's like pocketbook size. It's not full size comic, but it's pocketbook. Pocketbook size, 64 pages, and telling a complete story. Well, back then, which was the 1960s, DC Thomson also put out a female version called Star Love Stories, and I ended up working for Star Love Stories.
Wow. Okay. How was that experience?
Oh, it was great.
Was mostly focus for girls and women, that kind of comic. So
yeah, totally not for men at all. No, it was interesting. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
When I moved to London from DC Thomson's, I went to work for IPC magazines in London, and I was hoping to get a job in their comics division. But when I arrived down there, the comics division was on strike. So the first job I was offered, which was on teenage romantic fiction again. So I ended up working on titles like Loving, Love Affair, Honey, mostly what you'd call true confession type stories.
Sure.
So from editing the other writers' versions of stories, which often weren't very good, I figured I would try writing a few stories myself, which I did. And I became quite successful at it. I had a run of hit stories and Loving and Love Affair. And although I was happy to be writing, it wasn't what I wanted to write, because
of course.
I had to pretend to be a girl.
But it's an interesting exercise for a writer.
Yeah, it was a great exercise. And when I left them and became a freelance writer, I moved back to Scotland, and it was John Wagner and I kept in close touch because we'd been friends since our days at DC Thompson. And he told me about this new comic that they were putting out at IPC called 2000 AD.
That was really revolutionary at the time, I think. No?
Yeah, definitely. Anyway, I went down to London, met the editor of 2000 AD, and by the time I left, I had the job as sub-editor on 2000 AD. So that was basically how I got into that line of comics. And I went from editing it to writing most of it.
Wow. But I was more, I know a little bit more of the story of comic books from in United States than in England. How different was the scene or the industry around that time? Was really different, or were trying to
it was very different. British comics were traditionally for children, and made no pretense at anything else. Whereas after Marvel comics came along in America, it was obvious that comics were teenagers. And it was 2000 AD which changed that.
Because that comic was more focused for teenage and maybe adults.
For older readers, yeah.
Yeah, no, that was great, and that's when the character Judge Dredd was released, right?
Yeah, Judge Dredd was created by John Wagner and Carlos. Very loosely based on the Clint Eastwood character, Dirty Harry.
Really?
Dirty
Harry movie. I know. Yes.
Well, Judge Dredd is Clint Eastwood taken to another level.
Yeah. But no, I found it really interesting, the universe, like kind of this dystopia of the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think was really interesting. And how was to write to change to writing love stories stuff like that to Judge Dredd?
No, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed writing love stories, but they were never the sort of passion that I got from writing Judge Dredd and Batman and other characters like Lobo, for instance. I mean, these which really excited me.
Sure. No, well, I think it's every character has his own appeal. So after write Judge Dredd, then you start to have offers to write a character for DC Comics, or how?
Yeah. Well, John and I were working one day, and we got a phone call from Denny O'Neil, who told us that he was the Batman editor, and he would like us to have a go at writing a Batman script. And he said that the reason he was asking us was because he thought that Batman had become too soft in the comics, and he wanted Batman toughened up like we did with Judge Dredd. So John Wagner and I wrote the very first Scarface and Ventriloquist story, which I think more or less returned Batman to his roots for all the how will I put it, all the talking heads and the romantic stuff which came in the previous version of the comics. it was like a return to Batman of old, bringing the Ventriloquist and Scarface into the action. And Denny had only asked us to write 2 issues, but on the strength of these 2 issues, he gave us a contract for a year. And at the end of the contract was, it was repeated for the next 10 years. I wrote Batman for 10 years.
Wow. And you always work in partnership with Don Watler?
No. For 4 or 5 years, we did work in a partnership with everything. But when we started writing Batman, I think that signaled a change, because I had always been an American comics fan, and John had never been an American comics fan. And we started arguing quite a lot about our stories. So in the end, I think John only co-wrote the first 5 stories in the text, which we did, and I did the rest of them on my own, although they're credits to him as well, because we had a 1-year contract, and I was afraid to take his name off the contract in case they canceled.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so you were familiar with the character before start to write it? Or?
I know, yeah.
You were a fan?
Yeah, Batman has always been my favourite comic character. When I was about 4 years old, my cousin emigrated to Canada to work for Bell Telephones or something, and he started sending back irregular parcels of comics, and it was all DC comics at that time. So it was Wonder Woman, Justice League of America, Superman, Flash, and Batman. And Batman was the one which really appealed to me. And I read Batman ever since. Whatever else I was doing, I made sure that I got hold of Batman to keep up with it all.
No, I think he's a really interesting character. And when you start to write with Batman, you have a lot of limitations from the editors. Like, yeah, you can do that, you can, or they let you a little bit more freedom, especially because they want to a different feel.
Yeah, want a different approach. Yeah, you get a bit more freedom to do what you want. And Denny O'Neil was the best editor I ever had. And basically, he said, "Just you write what you feel like writing." And he said, "If it's wrong, I'll tell you." But he hardly ever had to tell me it was wrong. He was happy with what I did.
Oh, that's great. And it was never a time that you had a crazy idea really outside the box and they say, sorry, Alan, we can't do that.
No, never.
Oh, that's great. Because the billions that you create, Zsasz, Anarky, was really kind of really original when you compare with other characters.
Yeah,
And
well, that was one of the things I always liked about Batman. They had such interesting villains, so I was very to add to his store of interesting villains to fight.
Yeah, for sure. And for that billions that you create, what was your inspiration, for example, for Zsasz? You can remember?
I really can't remember. No, I really can't remember.
No, because it's really interesting. And what about Anarky?
Well, at the time that I created Anarky, I was actually a member of the British Anarchist Association, and I wanted to spread the ideas and the ideals of anarchy to America, because in America up till that time, if anybody said anarchy, all you thought of was a guy in a black cape holding a round bomb with a fizzing fuse in it.
Yes.
Well, I wanted to show anarchy for what it really was. And yeah, I think he worked.
Mm.
I also, and not many people know this, when I created Anarky, it was round about the time that DC killed off one of the Robins, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Killed off. And I
Yeah.
had, yeah.
Are that
Well,
in the family? No?
yeah. I
Mm.
knew I knew that they would never continue Batman without Robin forever. So I knew there was bound to be a new Robin come along. And I thought that Anarky would fill the bill. But unfortunately, unknown to me, Denny O'Neil and Marv Wolfman had already been working on the Tim Drake, who became the new Robin. But I still think it would have been more interesting if it had been Anarky who'd been Robin.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. No, and it's funny because when the people that don't know about the what anarchism, the philosophy or the concept, they imagine people breaking glass or you know,
Yep.
but basically that's basically it's just be able to create a society, a community without any leader, more like a horizontal
Yeah, rather than the vertical
society
structure.
than pyramidal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure a lot of people when you present a character in United States, they were like, "What the?"
Yeah, yeah. It drew a lot of mail from the readers. And for me in Britain, the British anarchists used to put out a monthly magazine called Black Flag at that time. And the front page of Black Flag had a picture of a version of Norm Breyfogle's Anarky. I can't remember what the headline was, but they said that I had sold Anarky out for capitalist gold.
No.
A traitor to the cause. I was quite by that, but
Well, there's always people that see just black and white. But no, I think maybe with your character you make people, maybe teach them something new, a different perspective, something spark their curiosity. No, I found always interesting when you can transmit something more deeper that just but action and is good.
yeah,
But if you can,
you need the action as well. But
yeah,
it's
of
all
course,
to have a deeper cause, a deeper motivation for the
yes.
story. And I almost always try to bring some sense of reality into my story. Doesn't matter how fantastic they are, I try to bring something that's real into them as well.
No, that's great. And well, yeah, we can read your comics. We can feel that. And of all the comics that you write for Batman, there is a storyline that you really like, that you really close to your heart.
I did a story, it was just a one-off story.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Shadow of the Bat number 17, and it was called The Nobody. And that was one of my favorite Batman stories that I did. But then, of course, stories like Cornelius Stark and Scarface and the Ventriloquist, many of the other villains, all had a particular satisfaction of having written them. I was glad to be adding to the Batman library.
Oh, that's awesome. And when do you kind of stop writing Batman?
Why did I stop? Are you asking why I stopped writing Batman?
No, when? About when? And why also? Because I know you work in several titles, maybe at the same time.
I think I stopped working on Batman in the year 2000. And like I said earlier, when I first started writing the character, Denny O'Neil told me that they changed the origin and retold it every 10 years or so. But he also said at that time, and that's the maximum time anybody ends up writing Batman is 10 years. And that's how it was for me too.
Wow. But 10 years was very good. Very good 10 years.
Yeah.
So, and what about Lobo?
Well, Lobo was a rather dull character from Legion until Simon Bisley got his hands on him. The artist Bisley, and
It's
Bisley,
awesome.
he made him into this monster. And we just changed the stories to go with that. But I mean, I don't know if you knew Lobo before Bisley, but he was just like a guy wearing a leather jacket and tight pants.
Really?
Yeah, he looked really just like an ordinary guy with a can't remember what you call the haircut.
So what?
No, like a bob.
A mohawk? Okay.
Not more. Anyway, it doesn't matter, you know.
Yes.
With an ordinary haircut. And it was business that turned him into the maniac that
Yeah, no, I'm sure I'm kind of surprised that they never, well, I think they were gonna do it eventually, but they didn't make a TV show or a movie with this character, because for me it's like the same vibe, a little like Deadpool for Marvel.
Exactly.
Can be the same with Lobo.
Yeah, I agree entirely. They did ask me to write a 90-minute introductory 2-episode Lobo story for television, which I did. I would have loved to have seen Lobo on TV. But after they got the script, they phoned me to tell me that it was far too violent and they could never show it on television. Which seems to prove to me that they never read Lobo in the first place.
Yes. Yeah, of course, because that was the appealing. That's the appeal of Lobo. But I think now studios are more open, companies are more open to do something. They realize that there's a more mature audience that can enjoy that. And about Lobo, there's some stuff that you kind of include into the universe of the character during your run.
Yeah. No, I'm finding it hard to remember.
Oh, it's okay. But no, for me, it was really a cool character. And the art of Simon Bisley is, well, since Judge Dredd was awesome. And yeah, but of course, the story were really violent, but funny at the same time. It was a really dark humor.
Yeah, exactly as planned.
Yes. No, but it was really cool and really original, I think, for that time. Because, I don't know, around that time, Marvel didn't have a character like that.
No, I think Deadpool is the closest Marvel.
Yeah. But was way later.
Yeah, but if DC had put the same thinking into Lobo as Marvel put into thinking about Deadpool, I think Lobo was very successful.
Yeah, no, I agree. And also, you wrote the demon, Etrigan.
Yeah. Jack Kirby's
Yeah.
demon.
Yeah, no, that was really cool too. A really cool character that was created by Jack Kirby,
Yep.
but was kind of created and put it in a drawer.
No, they did run a demon comic. I don't know how long it lasted. Maybe just
But
50 copies, issues.
yeah, but it was really cool. But what I was saying is, when Jack Kirby created, they never exploit the character until you start to write it.
Another question that requires too much energy.
No problem. You have some water there?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Well, maybe you can. Yeah. Or a beer, I don't know.
I don't drink alcohol, actually.
Never?
Never. I gave it up 20 years ago.
Ah, okay. Oh, that's okay. Well, I'm giving up today. I'm having a dry period at the moment.
Yeah.
To restore my liver. Because with with the holidays and yeah, and but yeah, also COVID is kind of a very stressful situation for a lot of people. So I'm sure I'm not the only one that sometimes grab a beer, sometimes I'll grab another beer because you're confined in your home. You have no a very clear future when this stuff will stop. So create a lot of stress for people.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people that start drinking to try to survive. Well, no, that's just great to try to deal with this. But yeah, good for you, because at the end, well, it's your stomach, your liver who suffer.
Yeah.
So, well, no longer questions. uh, I will just because we talk about Lobo, Batman, uh, Etrigan, but I'm sure there's a lot of other work you do, but it was not for the big companies. So that will be interesting to know a little bit, if you have time. Maybe you want to stop here. I don't know.
Well, I've written a couple of comics about life in the village here, and we get the village children to do the illustrations, and then we sell and give the money to village charities. So that's been quite successful. Also, and a lot of people don't know this, but when John Wagner and I were working together on 2000 AD, IPC magazines, who owned it at that time, they also put out a lot of other boys' comics with titles like Scream, can't even remember now, Lion, Tiger, and Wagner and I started writing these stories. And some weeks we wrote all 6 or all 8 of the stories that appeared in some of these comics. It's only now that it's been realised that our names should have been on them. They were all done under pseudonyms, and Rebellion has started to re-release them in albums, but featuring our own names. That's
Oh, that's awesome. And I saw you create like a publishing company, or no? Or maybe I'm mistaken.
No, I did create a publishing company, yes, to publish a comic called Wasted. But unfortunately, the inland revenue forced me into bankruptcy.
Well, comic book industry, the comic book industry, I think, since 2000 is for me the peak was the kind of the 90s when was a really the peak. Well, there was a lot of speculation. People were buying a lot of comics like trading, like stock trading. But yeah, I think after that the industry started to decline a little. Now there were kind of revival with all the Marvel films, but I don't know. I think well, I'm 43 years old, so I still love real comic books. Have it on my hand.
The sound has gone completely.
Sorry?
The sound has gone. It's disappeared.
The sound has gone?
No, I can't hear you.
Can now.
Sorry? You can hear me now?
No.
No. That's weird.
I can hear you.
I can't hear you. You can't hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, it's internet. Sometimes the connection is. No, what I was that I was saying that I'm 43 years old. So I'm used to grow up with real comics, with paper, but I think the new generations maybe are less used to, the paper comics. They sometimes they will read digital comics or stuff like that, and maybe that's well, of course, that creates an issue because when it's digital, you can share it for free. It's the same what happened with the music industry. But no, I think there are still people that enjoy it, and for me, I'm really passionate about, because all the people talk about the movies, and now all people talk about these characters. But if it wasn't people like you or other creators that really put the work, the base to create that universe, there will be no movies, no TV shows.
No. I think Marvel have done a great job with their movies. They've really capitalized on the characters as much as good. I don't think DC have been so thorough. They've not done such a good job with making movies of their characters. But you can't win everything.
Yeah, of course. And I think Marvel really tried for years to make a good comic book movie, but they failed every time. He tried with the Fantastic Four. He tried with many other. Well, Blade was kind of success, but really was Iron Man that, and was so simple because was the problem with all this the movies was that they were trying to do something different. They didn't respect the source material.
No, that's true. That's true.
And it's so stupid because you know you have something that have been tested for years, and no, we're gonna change everything. It's like, but why? You know, and I think really with Iron Man or with the Nolan trilogy of Batman, for example, or all the Avengers movie, but they really realize that we don't need to invent the wheel. We just need to put the universe, the history, these characters in a way that we can present it on the screen on a way that is credible and is kind of serious, and people will react, and there's really
people will respond to that. My throat's getting pretty sore.
Don't worry, Master. I really thank you for your time, and well, maybe we'll talk another time. And was really an honor to have you on my podcast. And well, I wish you this recovery, and see you another time.
Okay, thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.